time we've had any interactions is there's a story that you can connect it with. And I think, I think that helps you so much when you're talking with clients or we're talking with potential clients is that you're able to tell a story, right? From real life experiences and have that relate somehow to their situation, right? They always say, like, hey, like the best way to sell is to tell stories, be a storyteller, right? And I think that's what you were made to do is just be a storyteller.
Well, given the niche that I have, which is historic and vintage homes, it's
Yeah,
easy to tell those stories. It's
right.
easy to tell the stories of the house. And I do a lot of open houses. I love open houses. I've sold through open houses. I pick up buyers from open houses. And I think it's because, sure, I want to sell that house, but I don't go in like, what was it, American Pie or something, some movie and
Yes.
be like, I'm not there an hour. I am there an hour ahead of time,
Mhm.
sometimes cleaning, but
Right, right.
not in my underwear and bra. And but I'm just there to showcase the home. And I'm there to showcase the home and then tell the story. But what I love is, and I think this one might be why I'm successful at it at open houses, is I'm just excited as to who I get to meet
Yeah,
who am I going to meet that day?
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way of thinking. I think a lot of us, think of like open houses as a chore and it's kind of like, I have to be there for 4 hours. What if nobody comes, right? But I think the way you're thinking about it is so positive and it's very optimistic. Be like, hey, you know what? Even if I don't get a client, I'm still gonna make some connections. I can still kind of just
Yeah.
practice, so when that client that I am gonna work with, right? I've already done it thousands of times, right? And you have to be, when people come to an open house, you have to show them that you're excited as well. Because, I mean, I just think of like when I was in college, I had a professor who was just, I could tell he hated his job. I could
Mhm.
just tell. And every student in that classroom didn't want to be there because that professor just wasn't giving any passion, right? And so I think with your energy, with people walking into an open house, you greeting them, you've really started a conversation. They get excited. They get excited.
Well, I think sometimes, like somebody recently had a little boy. He was 7. I found out later he was 7. And he walked in, he didn't want to be there. The parents were walking through, and I gave them a flyer, and I had a whole list of like your own walking tour on this house because it's an amazing house. But I said to the little boy, I said, "Hey, will you let me know what your favorite part of the house is when you get done?" And he was just kind of like, but I engaged with him as well. And, or if somebody has a collection, once I asked someone if they could find, could you find 10 frogs in the house? Because
Oh, I love
there
that.
had to be 75 freaking frogs in that house. But can you find 10? And it engages with everybody. The parents are already engaged, but it's doing that. And it was funny because this is a 1926 house. They have 4 kids, and the wife was like, "This is beautiful, but with 4 kids, they would destroy it." And this beautiful home, and I said, "First of all, this house has seen lots of kids. You're not
Mhm,
going to damage it." And the
mhm.
little boy was like, "We wouldn't damage it. We would take care of something this beautiful." And
Wow.
he's 7,
Yeah, yeah,
so it's just kind of
yeah.
cool
See,
and sometimes people
storyteller.
don't
You're a
know,
storyteller. I love it.
yeah, people don't know that we even have historic properties.
Yeah.
And it's just so that you're giving them a new experience, and it's opportunity then to give them like your favorite restaurants, mom and pop restaurants. They share something with you. Like
Mhm.
I love open houses
So tell
and
me,
not just to sell a house.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk about open houses today, because I think that was kind of where we're focusing on. And I think there's obviously to every open house, there's a getting prepared for the open house, when you're at the open house, right? And then a post open house. Can you walk us through some of your process of a
Yeah,
successful
Yeah.
open
but
house?
yeah, do it in order in the sense that okay, you're gonna have a house held open Saturday. So what are your steps this week to prep that house to be held open Saturday?
Okay. All right. So first of all, it differs if it's a vacant house or an occupied house. Vacant houses are obviously much easier. But part of my business is that I stage all houses, all vacant houses. Okay, so that's first. Within my listing agreement, I pay for professional cleaning, professional window cleaning, and then staging of the properties.
Now,
Okay.
we'll stop right there. When you do that in the ER and the seller signs off on it, now it all happens to all of us. Listings canceled, they expire, the sellers fire us for whatever nonsense reason. Putting all that money up front in staging, cleaning, do you have a clause in there that if for some reason this contract cancels, expires, whatever, that they are reimbursing you that cost, or are you just out?
I'm out.
Okay. And what's the
The
average
price of
cost
business.
of that?
It's about $2,000 to $4,000 when you
Okay.
when you include photography, movers. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I have my own, it depends, but I would
Yeah.
say solidly 2,000,
Okay.
upwards of 4.
Continue.
Okay. So you have to have the actual physical property prepped, and then you have to make flyers. It's dependent on the house. I sometimes will do a broker open in conjunction with a neighborhood open. So I'll flyer the neighborhood, and sometimes it's invite a neighbor to become a friend. And so you invite them to an open house. So you're inviting the neighbors, and then a lot of neighbors have friends that they want to be neighbors.
Right.
Incorporate that. Sometimes a broker open house. I did one at the Regency on Friday evening. We went live on Friday. I did an open house, flyered everybody in the complex, and
Wow.
Did you put it on the doors, or do you stick it in mailboxes?
I talked to the desk, the
Yeah.
management company, and
Yeah.
they said I could do the mailboxes. So I did all the mailboxes. And I got out of 119 units in the complex, I had, I think, 15 units represented there.
Cool.
Wow.
Right on.
Great.
So it was
That's
a
a
pretty
cool
good
building.
turnout. And
Yeah,
it was
that
from
is.
4 to 7, had wine, Postino's bruschetta. I had I'm known for AJ's chocolate covered cherries, so those were there
Yeah.
too.
And you had a visit from somebody I went to high school with, and I've known since I think 83. So
No,
that's pretty.
that was a different house.
Oh, okay.
That was a different house, and
Gotcha.
somebody else held that one open for me, but she used to be a neighbor. But yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
But then I prepare the flyers. If I'm doing an open house, I used to, and I think I want to get back to it, but it's kind of time. Things changed during COVID, of course, but I used to do homemade baked goods.
Oh.
And so I had, my second husband used to say, I had my open house groupies. They would come for my open houses and they would come through. And the thing is, I love looky-loos because I know they're looky-loos because they've come to all my open houses, but the potentially interested people that come through don't. So they're like, there are a lot of people at this open house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So going backwards a little bit. If it's a vacant house, you're going to stage it. You're going to do the photos. You're going to do the flyers. So it's a vacant house. You're ready. You've staged it, all that kind of jazz. What are you doing during the week to market that open house on Saturday?
You know what? I only do just an MLS. In MLS, or like I said, sometimes I flyer the area, the neighborhood. Sure. I will send it out sometimes sometimes I'll send it out to historic. I always try to put it on, not one of the realtor tours that are like title company. They put it together and there's 4 of you and you are only looking at your own listings. But I will put it on North Central tour, historic tour, or Nicholas's, multi-tour.
Okay. So the morning of the open house, what are you doing? It's 8 o'clock. The open house starts at 10. What are you doing?
I'm getting things together. Usually I do have some drinks, some fresh fruit, maybe some nibbles, there. And I'll have them, generally in the kitchen. I have flyers. I do have sometimes shares fades, which is a list of my favorite listings in the area. So people can come, they get a flyer on that house, and then I'm like, oh, by the way, here are my favorite ones in this area. And then they usually have some kind of quirky little thing like, don't miss don't worry, you can trade out that green carpet in the back bedroom. But what that shows is, so actually that's kind of prep too. I know the area. If I don't know the area and know the listings around the property, I look at them, I preview them prior to the open house. I want to be able to tell people this is why this house is better.
And
Yeah.
I think that's where some agents miss the mark when they're doing an open house that's not their own listing, right? If you have your own listing, that's one thing. You know the area, you know the property and everything. But if you're doing somebody else's open house,
You have to be in the same brokerage to do that, though, Marco. Right,
but
yeah,
what I'm
yeah.
saying is like if like you had an open house, like if I were to do your open house in Chandler, Chris, right? Before
Right.
I do that open house, I really have to know what's going on in that area, right?
Gotcha. Yep. Okay.
Because
Yep.
I don't
Agree.
live there. I'd hardly ever go there, right? So I'm doing a disservice not only to, you know, you, but also
Yeah.
to myself, right? When somebody says, "Oh, what school district is it in there?" Let me, you know,
Yeah.
you have to know a little bit. I mean, you don't have to be an expert, but know enough where you can have those conversations. And I think
Yep. Agreed.
also, you know, see what, you know, what else is available, right? Because
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
Sherry said, right? Hey, you might not like this one that has carpet, but guess what? There's one that's 2 blocks from here. It's a lower price point and it doesn't have any carpet, you know, and that could be the difference between you getting a client or not, right?
Yeah. And it makes you the neighborhood expert too in that person's eyes that's walking through the house.
Yeah.
Right. Like there was another one that was similarly, well, it was lower priced than ours. And so, if you just look on the sheet of paper, theirs looks better. And I'm like, well, yeah, except they're on a 9,000 square foot lot. We're on a 14,000 square foot lot. 5,000 square feet of land means your kids can run around the yard,
Right.
and it's a really big thing. And it's all about knowledge. At the end of the day, I think people want to feel comfortable where they live. They want to feel safe. They want to feel included. And the second thing is to work with a realtor. People pay for knowledge. At the end
Now,
of the
when you do,
day,
yeah,
yeah.
when you're
are
doing
you
your open,
going?
yeah, yeah. Okay. Go finish your statement. Then I'll ask my question.
Are you going for are you going for the discount lawyer, or are you going for the one that costs you more but he wins because
Right.
he's knowledgeable?
So you're at your open house, 10 o'clock. Do you do anything during your open houses to lead capture? Or
No.
are you're just having conversations? You kind of organically, if they want to work with you, then you're going to get their details, things like that. So there's no, because I don't do it either. I used to do that, and I would get a lot of push off. You know, a lot of people would not give you right information. Their handwriting would suck, right? And then
Right.
you're forcing a connection. I always look at it like that. But there's other agents that will swear up and down left and right. Like if you do an open house, you don't have a way to capture that lead. You're wasting your time.
So I don't have anybody sign in. I will
Okay.
say one thing is key to open houses is
Okay.
I get there ahead of time. I try to get there ahead of time, with plenty of time. Open up. I do follow safety precautions.
Yeah.
Okay. I have all exits open. All
I
the
do the
doors
same.
are open. All the doors are open. If it's a enclosed block fenced backyard, the gate to exit is open. I'm not in the driveway in a manner that somebody could block me in.
Right.
I mean, you have to pay attention to safety.
Agreed.
Okay, because that's a reality within our business.
Totally.
Yeah.
The first story I ever heard when I was in real estate school 27 years ago was a retired drill instructor for the Marine Corps met a client in a Denny's parking lot and then vanished. 3 days later, they found his body in the trunk of a car. A drill instructor for the Marines. So it doesn't matter who you are. We could have a
Right.
whole show on safety, open house safety, realtor safety in general.
Mhm.
I do the same thing, and I'm a guy, and I still have all the doors open. I don't have the back gate open, but I do have the doors open front and back because even when I show houses, I leave the front door open, and my clients try to close. I'm like, no. We need a way out. Oh, okay. So yeah, that's good. Safety is top of mind for sure.
Yeah. And so I do that. When somebody comes in, I greet them, hand them a flyer, give them, depending, I can give
Yeah.
them to where I give them like this, over here. I'm famous for my hand gestures,
Well,
over
you're
here, over
Italian,
here,
right?
da, da, da. And then I let them be. Once in a while, I will say, "Oh, are you working? Do you have an agent? What are you looking for? What are you,
Right.
whatever?"
Right.
And if somebody gets that, and if they go like this, I go like this.
Right.
And it's funny because if they step back, I step back twice.
And
And Nola, and then, Nola has been at open houses with me. And I'll just be like, okay, well, you know what? Nola can show you the amenities if you'd like, if we're in a condo.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, okay, and she'll go. And that's code for, I don't want to talk to you. And then
Right.
we'll come back. And then Nola's like, they gave you their contact information then. And I was like, oh, great, and we follow up, and we actually got a referral from that man this summer.
That's
Wow.
respecting their space and reading their body language. Because you're right. A lot of people go into open houses automatically defensive because they know, oh, there's a fucking house. And then when you just step back and say, because I do the same thing. Here's my flyer. Here's the house. I'm going to follow you around. Like I did one of my horse properties Saturday. And same thing, give them the flyer, tell them who I am. I'm going to follow you around. If you have any questions, I'll be behind you. And it's probably 6, 7, 8
Yeah.
steps behind them,
Mhm.
but it gives them more freedom to look around. They're not going to have those intimate conversations.
Yeah.
In a normal house, I let them go out back by themselves and then they can chat.
Right.
But on my horse property, there's no way. I have to show them everything. I agree with that. You step back and let them read their body language and kind of just go with the flow. You're going to have more success
And it kind of
than not.
and it kind of goes back to what you were saying, Sherry, is like, don't be starving, right? Don't be starving. Nobody wants a
Exactly.
realtor that is just on top of you because they want to get paid and they just, that commission breath is all over the place, right? So, I mean, because, we've all been there where we're like, oh my gosh, I've gone a few months without a deal. And whether you can or can't, like help it, it's on top of mind, right? I need a deal. I need a deal. I need a deal, right? So how do you approach that with poise, How do you approach clients where hey, look, I really need a deal, but I don't want to come off desperate or starving. Is there a trick or how do you handle that situation?
At the end of the day, and I swear people smell it like dogs smell fear. Okay. Clients will know if you care more about the commission than you care about their well-being.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, if you can't do that, don't be around.
Right. And
Love
that's
that.
why I've always
Love
said
that.
connections before commissions, because once you have
Hmm.
that connection established, the commission is a byproduct of that relationship. Regardless if the relationship is just real estate transaction related, because we all have those things where you think this is going to be somebody I talk to and engage with the rest of my life, then you close and you're like, yeah, I'm out. They'll still
Yeah.
respond, they'll still respond to you professionally, but the dynamic that you were hoping to create during the transaction just goes to the wayside because in their mind it was a transactional friendship, which is fine, right? But it leads to what you just said. The more connecting you're trying to do and building rapport you're trying to create, the better it's going to be in the end, because then they truly realize that you are there to help them buy or sell that
Right.
home for the
Right.
experience and knowledge, as opposed to just getting paid.
And it also kind of goes back to like, like when I would like do a lot of calls, right? When I first started, I was like, I would get so nervous. I would be like, just kind of like, because I'm not a very salesy guy, at least I don't think I am. And I would call these people and I felt so fake, right? Talking with them. And then my mentor said, you know what? Call them to see who needs your help. Who can I help today? Right. And that took off so much pressure and that took off so much of that fakeness away from me. And so now, like when I get on calls and I call my leads, people that I haven't had made a connection with,
Yeah.
I'm just like, hey, look, I'm just here to see if you need my help.
Right.
Instead of like, do you want to buy? Right? Are you looking, how can I help you buy? Right. And I think that shift in mentality, right, really goes a long ways. Exactly what you're saying, Sherry, is like people can smell it, right? People can smell that authenticity, right?
And some of it, especially like in historic, I have a client that she loves historic homes. I went on a home tour with her. Okay. So when this amazing historic estate came up and I was going to hold it open, I know she's not going to buy it. But I know she might want to see it. And so I'll send out an email and be like, hey, I just know, or, I'm doing this open house and I was going for your vibe in your house. Come take a look at it and let me know, if what you would do with it. Again, it's about yeah, it's about engaging. I mean, when I was in Italy, I sent out, I think 60, I think about 60 cards, like little notes, just little notes saying, thinking of you, saw blah blah blah, and thought of you. And that's it. And I got a lot of people like, oh my gosh, I got it 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks later. A couple times I was already home. But yeah, but anyway, but I enjoy open houses.
How many open house signs do you put out?
So I started paying attention to how many people were coming from the internet and how many people were coming from
Signs.
walkable. Keep in mind, I think we're having some issues in some of our beautiful historic districts with some people walking through that, you know, you definitely wouldn't want through a house and aren't going to be able to buy a house. And so anyway, I only do like two, three, maybe four.
Oh, wow.
See, I learned when I first started, it was the rule of thumb, if you have to put more than 3 signs down, don't hold the house open, because people, they lose interest, the too many turns, things like that.
The thing is 9 out of 10 people are coming from the internet anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Before I stopped doing all the signs, I started asking people,
Yeah,
oh,
I
are you
always
coming
ask.
from the sign? Are you
Yep.
coming from, you know?
That's the first thing I ask when they walk in the door. Hey, I'm Chris, the real estate guy. Did you find me off the signs or online? And Bobby, like to your point, 90% are off the internet, because once you hit in the MLS, it goes everywhere.
Right.
But signs are still good. You know, you still get traffic from signs. But
Well, but it also asks, if you ask them, oh, how did you
Yeah.
get it? You know, how did you know about the open house, the sign? If they say that they saw it on the internet, you know, they've already looked at the listing.
Correct.
So you don't have to explain
Now,
as much.
Right, but let's go to your listings now, because one of the things I've learned, it's something that I don't remember where I heard it, but it was somewhere in the broker sub world. The first 5 photos you put, it may have been something Nick shared. The first 5 photos you put on your listing should be the 5 most important photos you have for the house. So you ask your clients, what made you buy this house? What was it that turned you on to this neighborhood? So when you do that, instead of just, you know, if you look at most realtors, they take the house and then it goes in the whole path of going to the property, that kind of stuff, and it's just dry and boring, and you have 60 photos. There's nothing for the person to see to come to the house, right? If you have 60 photos, you're showing everything. So I've learned to keep it at a minimum, about 15 to 20 total. 5 of those are always outside or drones. I have a deal with Mike Small Photography, so he gets me 20 pictures and drones for like $230. So it's minimal. So it forces the person to actually have to go to the house or go to the open house to see the rest of the home, because that way you're kind of dangling that carrot. You're not showing them every single thing that the house has to offer. So when you're doing your photos, are you subscribing to that kind of mindset? Because I haven't looked at your listings in a while. When I blog, I just grab the first 2 photos and go. But do you inundate it with photos? Or you kind of like keep some stuff out to entice them to come?
No.
Okay.
No, I make, well, but I don't do, I think even on the estate, which is a 5-bedroom, 3-bath guest house, gardens, beautiful drone photography, carriage house.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever do more than 60 photos max.
Okay.
Usually no more than 30.
Yeah.
Okay. So usually I don't do, if I'm not going to get somebody bored clicking, you know, and the detail ones of like the amazing chandelier or those are always at the end.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. Those are at the end. So I do subscribe to that. I will say I love spin top signs for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially in a walkable neighborhood. I love spin top signs, and I do the 5 top ones in there, and I do things they can't see from the front.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you use QR codes at all?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't do that. There are a lot of things that I need to do that I don't do for my business.
Well, it's to each his own, right? You don't have to be.
Oh yeah, and I think at the end of the day, it has to be authentic. I just literally haven't. There's so much that I should be doing and could be doing that I just don't yet.
Okay, let's
30 years
summarize the open house thing, because we've kind of gone over the place, because I want everybody to get understanding of it. So vacant or occupied doesn't matter. You're going to stage it. You're going to do the professionally clean. You're going to have photos inside, outside, and drone. You're going to put 1 or 2 signs up depending on the neighborhood. You're going to do all online internet marketing per se. You're going to have little finger foods, things like that. You're opening all the doors for safety purposes. Now, do you also have all the lights on in every room and all the, drapes open, blinds open? Yeah, so we do too. Anything else I'm missing there?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, yeah, because I want to make sure everybody understands.
And the knowledgeable, something that you can hand people so that it will lead to more questions. Like these are my favorites in the area. They're not my listings, but you might want to check these out. These are other open houses that are open right now. Check it out.
Yeah, so something of value. You're giving them something of value. Cool. All right.
I want to see what you think of this, Sherry. So when I started in this business, that first year, I literally did an open house, at least one open house every weekend. I mean, I was out there, right? And that first year was it was great. I really enjoyed the open houses. And then I was like, okay, I can do this. And then so I started moving up, and being particular about the price point that I was going to do the open house with, right? And I think I've shared this on this podcast before, but I was doing a lot of open houses where it was like a million plus, right? I was doing some million plus open houses. And I found that I was just not connecting with that clientele. I just was, and then I kind of realized like, my ideal clientele is somewhere between that 500,000 and a million, right? Kind of in that area. And I think as agents that are doing a lot of open houses, I think you really have to be aware not only of the area that you're doing,
Servicing.
but also the clientele that is coming to that area, right? So if you're doing like an open house in a highly Hispanic area, it'd probably be good if you know Spanish, right? Or in my instance, right, I dropped down in my open houses. I was only doing open houses from 500,000 to 800,000, and I was able to connect so much better with that clientele. So I think as we move forward and we start thinking about open houses, I think that's also something that we need to be aware of. What type of client is coming to these open houses? Do I connect with these people, or how can I connect with these people? Right? What value of connection can I make with them?
Well, I think I mean, I do mostly historic and I live historic, and I sat on Historic Preservation Commission for 7 years. I was governor appointee to the Arizona Historical Society. I'm a historic geek. So if I'm doing a property in a historic district, that's for my connection. So it's not so much of an age connection. Like sometimes people are it's not an age connection, it's a historic connection, and it's based on my knowledge.
Right.
I
You want
think
to
that
stay in,
people
you want to
connect
stay in
with
your,
me,
yeah, stay in your lane.
but stay in my lane.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
will also say over the $1 million, I think you have to look at the people looking at the properties. I would never do an open house on a $3 million property in Paradise Valley and expect to get anything.
Right.
Because the people that are spending that much money are going to have a private showing with their own
Right.
agent.
Correct.
Right.
And you're not gonna, yeah, and if you think you're gonna collect leads from a $3 million open house, you're not, because they're not giving you a damn thing about who they are, where they come from. And if they do, it's bogus, because they don't want you bugging them, because
Right.
just, like you said, they're coming to the open house because they see it's open to go back to the realtor. I had somebody for the 5th time come to my horse property Saturday. My clients recognize them because every time they've come with a realtor, so this time they came by themselves, and they're acting like it was the first time they saw it. And then when they left, my owner's like, they've been there, like, this is like their 5th time. Just make an offer already. And then when I was talking to them, you get a little insight to what they're looking for. And we're not a fit, but they've been there 5 times. So that realtor is obviously not doing a good enough job to help them understand the dynamics of the situation. But you've been there 5 times and you're still coming back to look at the house. There's a disconnect there. And it's typically with the realtor.
Too many signs. We talked about that, right? The second one was do not neglect your safety measures. We talked a little bit about that. The last two we really haven't talked about was, third one was follow your guts in all real estate, not just open houses. And also don't neglect your taxes. Can you tell us a little bit about those two?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you specifically about the last one. Okay. Now, Nicholas is amazing. It's one of the things that I love about Brokers Hub Realty. He really says he's going to teach us how to make not this be a hobby, but an actual career, and make it a career. Right. And I've got to say, I got myself in trouble with taxes. Okay. And I don't know if people knew this, but I got myself in trouble with taxes. I would have done it again, maybe a little bit differently, but not much, because I did set up a PLLC, which is super important. I didn't really understand to set up not just the PLLC, but the S Corp, which makes a huge difference, because that will save you, I think, looking back on it, would have been about $20,000 a year on self-employment taxes. So I will say, get a really good accountant. Okay. For as much as people should have realtors when they buy a house, we have our own business. Get yourself a good accountant. Because if you don't get yourself a good accountant, at some point you might also need a good tax attorney. And so I will say that because I knew that my daughter would not take on all the debt if we weren't able to help her make it through law school. Okay. We moved during COVID. She graduated during COVID from undergrad. And then she couldn't get a job and law school. Prepare her for her life. You guys all know how important my daughter is. So I ignored the IRS. For 4 years, I had a commitment to her to pay her rent, her car insurance, and her phone. And in the Boston area, that was about $3,000 a month. And that started. And so I was finishing that in April. In May, because we moved in COVID, I realized that the IRS had been sending notices to my old house and I wasn't getting them. And so there was a lien on my property and they took my passport away.
Oh,
They said, like, hope you don't plan on going anywhere. So it was really a stressful time before we went to Italy because actually I got out. My tax attorney said, yeah, the State Department doesn't always pay attention to that, so you can go. But at the end of the day, I didn't realize if you don't file your taxes, from what you would owe, okay, there's a 25% penalty for not filing. So if you didn't file, you also didn't pay. There's an additional 25% penalty for not having paid. And then you add on interest.
Right.
it adds up.
And it adds up. And if for some reason you didn't get notices because they don't care, they found the address to put a lien on the property, but they couldn't mail me the notices. I was like, oh, I'll get notices. I'll fix it when I get notices. So I finished helping my daughter with law school in April. In May, I got a notice of a lien. And so I was like, oh, and then talked to the IRS, which of course took me a while I went in there. They can't talk to you. You had to go online, make an appointment, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I was able to leave and then come back. But at the end of the day, Jeremy Schachter with Fairway Mortgage was my hero because I had such good equity in my property. And this is where Zillow does help. They did an assessment online. So I did a HELOC because my tax attorney said, apply for a second. You're not going to get it because there's a lien on your property, but you can at least say you tried. Well, so I hope this doesn't hurt Jeremy, but I hope it helps him because my tax attorney has sent people to him already. I went online, I applied for the HELOC. I did put Jeremy in my confidence and say, look, if it comes up declined, I know I got myself into trouble, right? They used an online assessment tool for the valuation of my house, which increased it. By the way, the IRS also uses Zillow. So because I live next to a fancier neighborhood, they inflated my value by about $200,000.
Oh, nice.
But it helped with my HELOC. And I have an 835 credit score. So I was able to get a HELOC and pay off all my taxes. So I am a born again.
So when you went through the tax attorney, did they save any of the money from what was owed and the penalties and things like that?
Well, you were only guaranteed 1 year, so we're still seeing whether they will, because basically helping your kid have a good life doesn't count. They don't care. If people died, you lost your job, like something like that, they might care. They will give you a one-time penalty abatement for 1 year. But other than that, generally not. But my tax attorney said, let's try write up your story. So that's where we are. I have all my taxes paid off. We're waiting on them to determine what the final penalties will be and then to truly give me my passport back.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. Well, I think, I think like, as you said, I think a lot of us kind of grew up with this notion of like, we're not, with W-2, it's very easy. W-2 is like, you're just on cruise control, right? Every 2 weeks, you get this paycheck, your taxes are taken out, everything's taken care of, right? And that's what you have to live with, right? I think us as 1099s, right? It actually has helped because I was W-2 for 16 years. And then when I went to 1099, we got a CPA. My wife is a 1099, and it has forced us to really pay attention of the creative ways that we can get tax write-offs and how just it's so much more creative things that we thought we would never kind of think about, right? But it's because we have a CPA, right?
Exactly.
And they know this, they know those tax codes, they know what they can do, and it's all about, hey, you are a business. This is not just a hobby, right? You need to treat it as a business. You're going taking somebody to lunch. Hey, that's a tax write-off, right? Keep track of all that stuff.
And I think too, it's really important. Right. And at the end of the day, it's not all equal. I would be one of those people that's all in for a flat tax. Just don't make me do all the paperwork. Like, here, boom, here's my 1099. I pay 10% done. And that still would be more probably than what I'll end up paying. But it's really important that you get the PLLC, the S Corp, that you do all those things. So it's having a good accountant. And that is probably the biggest mistake that I made throughout decades.
And having that PLLC, it's very easy. You can do it in one day. It's very easy. I think it costs like 80 bucks.
You know, and we have an attorney, you know, that we've used at the office. And like I said, but make sure you have the S Corp, and that's your accountant. I mean, accountant can do everything. So really good accountant, I would say, absolutely. And you know, I was really hesitant. I didn't want to tell anybody. I didn't tell actually anybody until I paid it off. I was like, once I get myself out of trouble, I'll fess up. And but I think it is important for us to tell each other sometimes our failures as opposed to just our successes, because we can help each other with our failures. And there's I mean, it is what it is. You know, regret, shame, that doesn't help anything. But, you know, instead of being really ashamed that I put myself in this position, it's like, well, I did, and here's how I got out of it. And I'm happy to explain to everybody else what I did and what happened, so that hopefully they don't go down that same path.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, it's about being like vulnerable, and like, you know, I think that vulnerability is really just shows true, like, you know, camaraderie, right? And hey, it's like, you know, like, hey, I'm whatever, like I didn't have a good year last year, like, you know, or whatever, blah, 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 you know, and I think that goes a long ways because, you know, it shows the human side of you, right? You know, it's like, hey, you know,
I'm very human and very flawed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I said, when I used to be, they're like, hey, if she's in, I'm good, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's all about being real, raw, and relevant.
Yes.
So we have a couple minutes left. Anything you want to share with us from an advice standpoint? You know, it doesn't have to be real estate related. It can be life related. It can be goal centric. Whatever.
How's the book coming along?
Any type of knowledge you want to drop on us?
I love my book. I love the memoirs. I don't know. I don't want to leave on a sad note, but I've got to say, our friend Brad, fellow real estate broker, passed last week suddenly. And he was my rock. He was one of my rocks. He pulled me aside before I went to Italy in the summer, and he was like, I know something's going on. I don't know what it is. If you want to talk to me about it, I'm here, but you're not yourself. And I think that that's what Brokers Hub means so much to me, is that we have our group, and it's amazingly important. And I think that and I think at the end of the day, I look at Brad, and he took the time for his cruises, and he found his peace when all he saw was sea all around him. He worked hard, and then he took his time for that. He loved his husband so much. He loved his dog. He was fiercely supportive of and protective of his neighborhood, like his pity that he adopted. He leaves a good legacy. And at the end of the day, I always remember Maya Angelou. She was like, nobody's gonna remember what you wore, probably won't even remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I think all of it, we're lucky enough to help people find their homes, their havens, and be part of it. I love when I get pictures of new babies and we hear that, you know, they need a new house because they've expanded, and we're there to hold their hands in times of turmoil as well. And so after 30 some years, I love what I do, and I cherish the people that I've met through it. You guys.
Thank you for that, Sherry. Thank you. That was beautiful.
Thanks.
There you go. That's Elevating Your Voice, boys and girls. We'll see you next week. Until then, bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.